Hi everyone, my name is Sheryl Hadeka and I play horn in the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. We are going to learn how to start playing the French horn. We have a couple basics to cover, including buzzing, horn placement, your posture, even right hand placement, and we're even going to talk about breathing correctly. So why don't we get started? The first thing I want to start with is breathing correctly. So we are brass players when we play the French horn, but we're also wind players, and wind playing requires air. So it's really important that you have correct, effective, and efficient air when you're playing your instrument. I like to think about when I'm breathing in, that's to start, that my belly and my stomach is expanding, even my back is expanding. It's not just up here where you think your lungs are, it's down here actually. So let's try breathing in, thinking about expanding our lower body. Excellent. So we're not moving up our shoulders when we're taking a breath, we're actually expanding even lower. Excellent. Great. Now we are going to think about what it takes to be breathing out. So when we breathe in, everything should expand here, and when we're blowing out, we should actually be thinking that same thing. Everything is still expanded and round here. It's not something where we end up collapsing when we're breathing out. It's not like this. That's too tense and too tight, right? So instead, we breathe in, down low, okay? And then when we're blowing out into our instrument eventually, we're still thinking about that expansion and that setting out of our breathing. Not the squeezed and tight breathing out. Now we're going to talk about mouthpiece placement, and what is really fun is buzzing. So first, take out your mouthpiece, all right? And this is actually super helpful if you have a mirror. So I'm going to be using a mirror on my stand over here, and I even have something that's a little bit more special. This is called a mouthpiece visualizer. So you can see it's the same shape and size as my mouthpiece, but it helps me really find where I'm putting my mouthpiece on my lips. So you want to start with your embouchure by saying the letter M. M. So if you feel your corners are kind of firm and they're kind of set, M, okay? We're not having too much of a smile versus a pucker. We kind of have what's called a puckering smile. Okay, so you see the corners of my mouth. This is what I like to refer to as my set embouchure, when my corners are really firm. Okay, good. Now, when I take my mouthpiece, I end up putting it on 2/3 of my top lip and 1/3 of my bottom lip. Okay, so you can see I have more on my top lip than I do in my bottom lip. Excellent. Good. And then in order to start buzzing, I like to feel my M, but then firming everything up to make that kind of sound. Okay. And then I put my mouthpiece or my mouthpiece visualizer up on my lips, 2/3 top, 1/3 bottom. And then I can do that through there. Awesome. See, you can see it's the same thing with my mouthpiece. And I talked funny through my mouthpiece. Excellent. Good. Now, if you take that good breath you just learned about, nice, deep, and full and relaxed in your lower body, then you can set your mouthpiece or your visualizer, and you can buzz through it. One of the fun things I like to do is practicing sirens on my mouthpiece, something like this. You can even practice scales just on your buzzing on your mouthpiece. Okay, there's a lot of stuff you can do in your mouthpiece. And in fact, your mouthpiece is where all the music and all the sound happens. Your horn is just an amplifier of the sound from your mouthpiece. Good, so just remember that puckering smile, having your corner set when you say M, firming everything up and blowing through that with your nice, big, relaxed, expansive lower body air. Okay, so now we have the horn in our hands. I always recommend holding your instrument with two hands. It helps no one if this one hand is just doing nothing while this instrument is being held, maybe even if it's here. Okay, we're always safer to hold our instrument by two hands. And that can be maybe your hand in the bell, like what I like to do, or you can hold it here and here, okay? So I always recommend two hands to start. And let's hold our instrument at a very neutral position. Let's evaluate how we're standing with our instrument first. Do you feel slumped? Do you feel tight at all in your back? What about your shoulders? Are those loose and easy? Good. Okay, so now what I like to do is feel like my feet are shoulder width apart, okay, and a nice, easy, natural position. And when I go to sit in my chair holding my instrument, I just keep my neutral back position and I sit down. Okay. Now when I'm sitting, I feel like I'm still not slumped over and I'm still not stretched out too far. Okay, I'm in a nice neutral position. And you can see my feet are still flat on the floor, about shoulder width apart. Good. Now, I want to bring my instrument up to me. So I'm evaluating how I'm sitting. I'm at the edge of my seat, notice, okay? We don't want to be back here, okay? I'm evaluating how I'm sitting and I'm feeling very solid and neutral at the same time. So now I can bring my instrument up to me. Okay. So notice how my lead pipe is at a slight angle down to the floor. Okay. It's not straight out. Okay. It's at a slight angle. And this helps with your bell placement. All right. So your bell should be a little bit more to the side, to your right side, as opposed to in front. Okay. You notice the difference? Good. And my lead pipe is angled down a little bit. Okay, so I'm putting a little bit more pressure on my bottom lip as opposed to my top lip. And notice I've never brought myself to the instrument. I was always in that neutral position and the instrument came to me. Good. Okay, so I like to play with my horn bell on my right leg. So that requires me to usually move my right leg out a little bit. Okay. But I'm still keeping my back neutral and I'm still not bringing myself to the horn. So I kind of like this little bit of a right leg out, and then I can still bring my instrument with my lead pipe angled down. Okay, so let's say you're taller than me and you need your horn to not be so low. Okay, based on the height of your chair, this is going to make a difference. So if your horn needs to be higher, what you can do is you can bring your right foot, your right heel actually, up to the leg of the chair. I'll move my left leg so that your heel's a little bit higher so that your horn goes higher. Notice the difference? Watch my horn. Okay, so again, we're always bringing the horn to us. Another option is to not put your horn bell on your leg, but you can kind of keep it off to the side a little bit. Okay, maybe something like this. You can pick it up and keep it off your leg to the side. That might be nice and neutral for you too. But I like to play with my bell on my leg. Okay, and if you need to bring your horn lower, you can actually, at the edge of your seat, bring your right foot even more out so that your right foot gets lower, okay? That's for people who are a little bit shorter. So notice once I bring my leg up, my horn gets higher, right? Good. So the most important thing is to remember that lead pipe angle, okay? And then we're always bringing the instrument to us. We're never arching, we're never leaning, we're never slumping. It's always this neutral position with the instrument to us. Okay, now we're going to talk about your right hand. Your right hand historically always goes in the bell, and that helps create a nice, beautiful sound, and also it helps with our intonation, our pitch, which makes us flat or sharp. Okay, so you start with your right hand by putting all your fingers together, including your thumb. We don't want it too cupped. We don't want it too straight or too overextended, right? This is kind of a neutral position. We call this a swimmer hand because it helps you get through the water, okay? But nothing too cupped. Okay, good. Just like that. Now, I take a look at my middle finger knuckle, and I imagine that going, if this were a clock face, at about 4 o'clock. Okay, so again, that neutral position hand going in with my middle knuckle at about 4 o'clock. Okay, and I actually put my my hand far enough into my horn so that it feels well supported and that I can almost hold my horn with just my right hand. Okay, so I don't want it to get smushed, and I don't want it to be too overextended. I don't want it to be too far out. I actually want it pretty far into the bell, but keeping that nice neutral position. Okay, and always think about your middle finger knuckle going at about 4 o'clock if this was a clock face. All right, now we're going to talk about emptying your water, or it's actually condensation, from your horn. All right, so you take a look at the back side of your horn, and you can see some horns have 2 slides here, some horns have a slide here, and one down here. Okay, and what you want to do is you want to spin your horn all the way to the ground. Okay, so now that gravity is causing all the water, the condensation here in the horn. So I have a spittoon, but you can use newspaper, you can use a paper towel or a regular towel, and you pull out your slide, okay, and then you empty it on that towel or in the spittoon. Okay, you pull out the other slide, you do the same thing. Excellent. Now, if you have a single horn, you only have 3 of these, but if you have a double horn like me, you have 6 of these slides. Okay, my trick for emptying these slides is you start with your horn upright like this, the bell is on top, okay, and you start pressing all 3 or 4 of your valves here, okay, and that means all the water then goes to this part of the horn because of gravity, and you spin your horn towards the bell while you're pressing down the slides, okay, and what that does is that brings all the water into this 3rd valve slide, okay, and it actually brings it to my B flat 3rd valve slide. So I want to press down my B flat valve plus my 3rd valve slide, and I want to pull out the slide to empty. Okay, let me put it back in, and I'm still pressing down the trigger and the 3rd valve in order to put the slide back in. Okay, that's a quick trick for emptying out all of these slides, but I highly recommend that you try to empty each of the 3 or the 6 of them individually every once in a while too. And I'm always pressing down my valve with the slide when I'm pulling out and in. Another trick I like to mention is the fact that you can pull this slide, hold it here, and then pull out the next slide. Okay. All right, one last thing I want to talk about is oiling your valves and greasing your slides. This is a really important maintenance thing for your instrument because it makes your valves work, okay? And it makes your slides go up and down, in and out, just so you can empty and so you don't have anything sticking here. Okay, so we start with our valve caps, which I have 4 of, some of you may have 3. Okay, we unscrew those. I like to do one at a time so I can keep track of the valve caps, otherwise they all look the same. Okay, and I take whatever oil I'm using. I use this Hetman's, maybe you use this Alcas, okay, and I put it right at the point where I see the valve moving, okay? Sometimes it's not in the direct center of the circle. It might be more on the edge. So I put it down here and I oil that section. Okay, and then I put my valve cap back on. Excellent. And press it a couple times just to make sure it works. And I would do that for the rest of my valves too. Good. Now, another spot to oil is on the back side of the instrument. And if you look really closely, you can see where the instrument is stationary versus where it moves in this area. Okay, let me do that again. Okay, and now I want to put the oil right in that spot. This is kind of a crevice in my horn. Okay, and then I press the valve a couple times just to make sure it really got in there. Excellent. Now, in order to grease our slides so that they move up and down very easily, I take out my slide and whatever slide gel or grease, sometimes I use Selmer's red grease, but today I'm using the slide gel. I put it on the edge of the slide all the way around this tip, all the way around. Make sure you get everything. You don't want too much, otherwise it really builds up, but just enough, okay? And then I put it back in where it goes. All right, and I kind of push it up and down a couple times just to make sure it really gets worked in on the slide. All right, so that's your beginner's toolkit. You have all the tools you need to be a successful horn player. I wish you the best on your musical journey and happy practicing. Join me again next time.